Alright, I will start.
Want to know why I hate editing photos? It's because there's always something that could be a little bit better, and so it's sort of like an endless process. I'm just using the native colors directly out of camera here. No tweaking of exposure either, but there's some nonsense at the bottom of the frame that I don't love. So I'm using Photoshop's generative AI to clean it up a little bit. And that's a little better, I guess. But I'm also trying some new tools. New to me anyway. This is Retouch4Me with the numeral 4. It's kind of insane what it's doing. Look at the shadow under her mouth. This is their dodge and burn plugin. Wow. I mean, that might be a little bit too much, but man, it's doing a good job with like zero input from me. A year ago, I decided to stop editing and to start shooting JPEGs straight out of camera. I was spending so much time editing, Lightroom into Photoshop, back into Lightroom, into Dehancer, this film emulation app that I'd grown quite fond of, then back into Lightroom, finally a finished image. But I was also shooting film, developing my own film in my bathroom, scanning the negatives myself. All of that involved just so much time. This dodge and burn tool is incredible. This is my first time ever using it. So this decision to switch from RAW to JPEG also saw my total exit from film photography. But I was also shooting infrared. I was shooting multiple kinds of infrared, each with their own specific editing needs. But really all of that pales in comparison to the 2 decades of doing client work, portrait sessions for customers, companies, catalogs, pageants, whatever. Weddings, hundreds and hundreds of weddings. I don't even know how many weddings. Maybe 1,000. You know how long it takes to edit a wedding? Photoshop's generative AI is awesome and unbelievably terrible at the same time. Like, I'm blown away with what it can do, and yet it never quite gets anything right. Like, it just insists on changing the shape of her face in order to retouch these hairs out. I don't understand why it can't be a little smarter than that. I literally could have done it faster the old-fashioned way. God, but the Retouch4Me dodge and burn is just incredible and effortless. I've spent so many countless hours editing for so many years. But I look back at my first couple years as a professional photographer, there wasn't much editing going on. There was shooting, and there was showing what I shot to the client. The occasional edit, but everything was mostly just straight out of camera, so what the hell? How did I go from professional photographer to professional tinkerer? Escalation, I think. You edit something just to polish it up a little because, you know, it's going to go in a portfolio or online. Well, now you have to do it again for the next image, because otherwise it won't match the last image. But now, like, the rest of the photos from that session don't match that image. Why is this one so much better than the rest? And customers will definitely expect a consistency. Consistency with your portfolio, consistency image to image. Man, the generative AI in Photoshop is so bad. In the year or two that I've not been using it, at least not much, haven't been doing any extensive edits, it has not improved in the slightest. Took me 20-something minutes to achieve a result that I'm still not happy with, and again that I could have achieved much quicker by traditional means. I also got a second plugin from Retouch4Me called Portrait Volumes. It was impressive in the demo I watched, but still a little unclear to me how it differs from dodge and burn. Oh, that's interesting. Think I get it. So, dodge and burn is kind of flattening the face, taking out depth in places you don't want it. And Portrait Volumes is adding depth back in, but only in those specific places that are appropriate. It's like contouring with light or with makeup. But once you experience that feeling of you're putting your best work out there, but you're doing so by means of extensive editing, you're kind of making a promise, and then you have to deliver on that promise. And the road from editing that one image here and there to spending the bulk of the rest of your existence stuck behind a computer editing is a very short one indeed. And so I had had enough and I stopped, mostly. Still do the occasional minor tweak of exposure or something, but honestly, rarely. And 50% of it is about getting it right in camera. The other 50 is even harder. That's the learning to let go part. Yes, you could improve the shot by tweaking it in post, but you have to resist. Because, be honest, you tweak that one, you're going to end up tweaking them all. And then your next shoot can't be worse than your last one. So it all starts again. My God, I'm loving this dodge and burn tool. It's beautiful in its subtlety. I mean, of course you can take it too far, but that's on you to have a little taste and restraint. I'm not saying that I do have either of those things. I'm just saying that you should have those things if you want to do good work. Portrait volumes for the win. Oh, that's great. Makes sense that a cleaner close-up image would show it off a little better. But it really helps to add a little bit of punch to an otherwise flat image. We didn't have any light yet. I hate shooting in those sorts of conditions, but sometimes you don't get a choice. This time, for example. But the change happened for me around the time my mom died. For one thing, it was a lesson about how precious and brief life is. A reminder not to waste any of it. But also I had a pretty good sense that those were her final days, and I got some nice photos of some special moments. And after she died a day or two later, I'm thinking, well, I need to edit those photos, I suppose. And gross. Just no. That was it for me. I knew I was going to focus all my time on the part of photography that I enjoy. Being out, taking photos, capturing real things in real ways. And going forward, none of my time would be spent editing or developing film. Just normal digital cameras, Jpeg straight out of camera. I tried making and buying some picture styles for my camera. I found that fairly unsatisfying. I wanted to switch to Fuji because of their film simulations, and for other reasons. Couldn't afford it. These have all been JPEGs straight out of camera, by the way. The ones where editing has not been shown, that's because none has occurred. But anyway, this is what ultimately led me to shooting old DSLRs again, because they already have kind of a cool retro look. And so I've been happily shooting JPEG straight out of camera ever since. And I wanted to know how much time this would save me, so I did very specifically track this over the course of the past year plus. But I also had to do a little estimating. It's tough to track how much time you would have spent on something you didn't do, so there's certainly a margin of error here. But I wanted to know, how much time did I save over the course of the last year by not editing, just using the JPEG straight out of camera? Approximately 1,100 hours, which, okay, it's hard for me to relate to a number like that, but I know a day is 24 hours, so we're talking about a whole bunch of days of my life that I got back, that I got to spend shooting or being with family instead of editing. How many days? 45 in 1 year, 45 days. So I used to spend a month and a half editing photos every year. What the hell? Such a waste. And what if I stretch that timeline out to 10 years? Well, in 10 years, I spent the equivalent of 1.2 years doing nothing but editing. No sleep, just editing around the clock for 1.2 years. Holy fuck. In light of these facts, I'm completely content with my decision. And having images with 10 or 15% less pop or whatever, it's fine. It's completely worth it. I will literally be gaining years of extra life by making this one change. So why am I editing right now? Why am I not following this philosophy that I'm describing to you? Well, I also don't like to approach anything dogmatically. I'm always reevaluating everything. So this is me reevaluating for the first time since the initial decision. But I also didn't want to fall back into my old routine. It's a good opportunity, I figure, to try some new things. Might be fun anyway. A potential ideal outcome of this could conceivably be a path where I could reincorporate some limited editing on a regular basis, leveraging some AI tools, but still without spending a great deal more time behind a computer than I have been. But let's see. So I reached back out to this company who had asked me to try some of their AI editing tools 3 or 4 months ago. At the time I said no, but maybe it's not too late, I figured. So I really should have been exposing these brighter. So I did brighten them all in post. And you're looking at the comparison between that initial brightened but otherwise unedited photo and one that's been run through the 2 plugins. Retouch4Me, Dodge and Burn, and Portrait Volumes. Funny enough, every single one of these looks overprocessed to me, including the ones that have not been run through the plugins. Maybe something about the way I brightened them just looks unnatural. I don't know. I don't like it. That one is straight out of camera, and that works really well. That's nice. That has some fun energy to it. But I'm really curious as to why I'm getting this overly edited look from images that are not edited, only brightened. So this is the unedited file directly out of camera. And this has been brightened by about 1.5 stops, just using the exposure slider in Lightroom. Not trying to retain any sky detail as I was before. And it still looks over-edited, so what the fuck, I don't get it. But I've also been missing film photography lately. I'm ready to give it another try. But I will not be developing my own images. Scanning, probably, but not developing. Also, I should probably mention, this whole thing was shot with an ND filter. Not a variable ND, just an ND, to allow me to shoot wide open, which is impossible on this lens in sunny conditions. Otherwise, I really like simple portraits like this, with subject dead center, just arms folded, doing nothing in particular. I have the affiliate link in the description, 20% off, if you happen to be interested in the software I have demonstrated. So the ND filter I've got on my lens is the source of a lot of this wacky lens flare. Not all of it, of course. And these, I didn't do anything to. I love this series, by the way, but they're just JPEGs straight out of camera. Unfortunately, I was pleased with the exposures. I don't know why it took me so long, though, to orient in the other direction. Didn't realize how much stuff I shot toward the sun. And these just look great. I think I've just really fallen in love with the JPEG straight out of camera look. Just looks so authentic, like it's not trying to be anything other than what it is. Now we're getting some good light. And these have been run through either Dodge and Burn, Portrait Volumes, or both. So I reached back out to this company who had asked me to try some of their AI editing tools for free. So for free, I got these 2 plugins that I've been using, and 2 others. The 2 others I'm saving for another day. One of them's called Heal. It's an auto-healing brush plugin. The other is Color Match. Heal is just not needed here. And Color Match I chose for a very specific upcoming project. I'm not really looking to do anything drastic with color today. But I explained to the company, sure, I'll try the tools in a video, but the video won't be about the tools specifically. And I asked, is it okay if I show other AI tools in the video, compare your software to other similar offerings from other companies? Something I ultimately chose not to do. And I asked, what if I don't like the software at all? I got the most awesome response that I've ever received in a situation like this. Because I have this fear of agreeing to stuff like this. Like a fear of being forced into being a shill because I failed to read the fine print or something. Well, they told me that they're cool with any approach I decide to take, including criticism, including direct comparisons to other companies' similar AI offerings. Not all of the companies I've dealt with through the course of making videos has been so awesome. about my take on things. Massive brownie points right there for Retouch4Me. Anyway, my final verdict is I'm really impressed by the tools. Will I continue using them after this? Or will they just sit there collecting digital dust? I honestly don't know. I certainly would if the occasion arose, but as I've mentioned once or twice, Jpeg straight out of camera has kind of become my thing. That said, the real test of any tool is how it fits into an actual workflow. And these tools fit in extremely well, way better than Photoshop and Lightroom, which are the bottleneck that slows the whole process down. But for me, the tools are secondary, and the gear is secondary. Because, you know what, everything else aside, photography is fun. Why does it often feel so stressful? Feels so serious and dire sometimes, but that's ridiculous. And that's just me torturing myself, making it harder than it has to be, experiencing the most negative possible version of whatever I'm experiencing. So don't be like me. Don't let photography be frustrating or intimidating. Just shoot, make mistakes, enjoy your successes. Most of all, have fun. You might have to remind yourself, force yourself to have fun, but do it. Definitely do it. Find a way to make it fun. Photography is fun. Should be anyway. It's supposed to be. If it's not, maybe you're doing it wrong. I certainly was for a long time, but it's a fragile balance between fun and obligation. Today was good. Today I stayed on the correct side of that divide. Sometimes it feels like if I don't walk away with something good, I've wasted my time. Wasted hers too. It's such a stupid way to look at it. Let's say, worst case scenario, I completely screwed up this photo shoot. So what would be the consequence? Well, I mean, I guess if I had some kind of overblown but fragile ego, that would be very tough. I mean, I don't like to disappoint people who put their trust in me. But seriously, wouldn't I just have to reach out and say, hey, I don't think I did a very good job, but we can reshoot it if you'd like? I mean, is that really such a big deal? Whatever happens and whatever I feel about it, that'll fade. The only thing that actually matters is whether I enjoy the process enough to keep coming back. Today I did, thankfully, because before the shoot I was starting to get pretty down about photography. But I've come out of this with a renewed interest and a renewed energy, because that's a freeing realization. If failure doesn't really matter, then there really isn't any point in playing it safe. If there are no real stakes, then why not just take more risks? Why not experiment more? Push further? I didn't really take any risks with this shoot, but that's okay. I was just in the moment. But now that I've had a chance to think it through, I think I'll approach the next one very differently. One thing I'll certainly do differently now that I've seen the images, I don't like how much I shot toward the sun. I really preferred everything we shot away from the sun. That's fun. I really like that. Oh, I love that, except her eyes are closed. Bummer. Those were great though. So time-saving AI tools, or saving time via JPEG straight out of camera, reevaluating our approach from time to time, our philosophy. Is JPEG the new film? Is RAW the new film? What was the old film? To shoot film or not to shoot film? Is it worth the trouble? Infrared, fun, but also pain in the ass. You know what's not a pain in the ass? Photography. Photography is fun, and if it's not fun, making it fun should become our top priority. Just a friendly reminder that it's still worth showing up for. And if I'm wrong about that, please don't tell me.